let's get the word out. I want to thank everybody who was patient with me. Friday, I was dealing with both body pain and a bit of personal stuff. So I just took what I will call a mental health break. I think it's important for you to know when you have hit that wall and to act accordingly and protect your mental health. So I went into protect and rest mode. And I'm just grateful that so many of you were supportive. I worry, a lot of my livelihood now is doing this content, so it is hard for me to justify, even when I am in pain or not mentally feeling up to it, not getting in front of the camera and talking about stuff. I always have my show notes. In fact, Friday's show notes are vastly different from what I'm going to talk about today because I had a whole thing planned, but I have to start listening. The older I get, the less I can play around when my body just doesn't want to do things. I have to take it seriously. And I am just grateful to all of you who gave words of support. I don't know if you understand how much it means to me to know that you guys understand that there are going to be times where I just can't and I need to rest instead. And that is what I did. And I just want to thank you all for the constant support. Now, we're going to get started on this Bonnet Chronicles with kind of a funny video. I just want the GOP to know that this old man represents a lot of us. This is how I feel if I had to deal with McCarthy and McConnell. This is how I would be if I had to deal with anybody Republican the last few years. I would be just like this old man. Like, I'm not touching you. I don't mind dealing with Schumer. I definitely would give Pelosi a hug. But the other two gargoyles, no thank you. No thank you. And this amount of petty brings me to what I want to open with because I've seen a lot of stuff about forgiveness today. Some of it really made me side eye. As a child who had to process a lot of trauma, who's still learning how to deal with the emotions I feel, having both neglectful and sometimes abusive people in my life, it is frustrating to me that push for forgiveness from people who don't want to even do the work to be forgiven. But this narrative that we have to forgive for somehow our soul salvation, I don't ascribe to that. Case in point, there was a case that's pretty fresh going on in Texas of a 7-year-old girl that was kidnapped, murdered, and more than likely done really dirty by a contracted FedEx employee. I'm going to say contracted because apparently FedEx wants to try to distance itself from this. This isn't the first time FedEx has had issues. I did a podcast a few months ago with an employee who was a victim of workplace harassment and is still trying to fight against FedEx in Texas. So it doesn't shock me that once again Texas, and welcome to the chat beans, is having these kind of issues. But to have a 7-year-old child, barely alive, innocent for most of the part, lose their life to somebody who was just supposed to drop off packages, who took the innocence and robbed the family of that child. And for the grandfather to go, well, I forgive him, but I want 5 minutes with him. That's not forgiveness, sir. And you don't owe that man forgiveness. He's a monster. He's a monster that took from your family. So I and many others, like we do, went to Twitter to talk about the issue with forgiveness and why pushing it is troublesome, especially to those of us who have survived trauma, who have been the victims of bullying or abuse. Because a lot of times we are told that we, for our sake, have to forgive people without realizing that A, the best thing you can do when somebody is harmful to you is to distance yourself, to create that barrier and boundary so that their toxicity does not erode your good, kind soul. But you also need to know that forgiving them in no way, shape, or form is going to make you feel better if you're not there. And that it is okay for you to mentally not be there. Now, granted, there are some people, and I don't believe there's a lot of them. I think a lot of people mentally force themselves into it. But there are a few that can be like, I feel better for myself to forgive somebody who's hurt me. It makes my soul feel better. That's good on you. I ain't that person. I've never been that person. I've played the games of, oh, I can forgive this person for her and me. And deep down, I was stabbing them. I was mentally destroying that person. And it was eroding me inside until I realized, you know what? Best thing for me is to burn that bridge, cut them completely out of my life. Done. They are dead to me, both mentally and everything else. And it's better for the both of us. But some of y'all want to play those games of, I got to forgive this person. I got to let them into my life. I got to open my heart so I can show them the bigger person. Because I'm going to get into some kingdom when I die anyway. And it's like, this is why. And this is not the shit on faith. But this is why your faith isn't a wholesale anymore. This is why you're gripping control. This is why you see TikToks with young ladies anti-masturbation, because control is the only thing you've got left. You realize that the wholesale of a life of misery to trade it up for an afterlife country club where you didn't want to accept me in this life, now you're trying to sell me on the afterlife of it. I just don't find it appealing right now. The way it is being sold, the way you're judging others for living their best lives, being open or being not like you, it's not for me. And that whole push of forgiving people when they have done you the dirtiest, when they've harmed you, when they've taken the life of somebody you love is insane to me, but it's not the first time I've seen it. Ahmaud Arbery's parents got asked by the media, do they forgive the three men who chased down their relative, took his life, gunned him down like he was vermin? George Floyd's family was asked that, and it's like, we literally watched his death. We watched his murderer sadistically take his life, and you're asking about forgiveness? That female cop, because I don't remember her name, I don't want to remember her name, who went into her neighbor's house and murdered him. The family was they hugged her. It's that weird societal gaslighting that I cannot understand or ascribe to, but I'm telling you right now, it could be me. And so I, like most on Twitter, expressed why it couldn't be me. And of course, there's always somebody from a certain demographic, and it's hilarious because it wasn't a woman this time. Normally it is a female, and I'll get to y'all in a little bit because y'all had your little fun with a certain topic. But to have a white man come at me about how I would feel better with forgiveness and how, you wouldn't like yourself. Sir, ma'am, I like myself fine. I can look the person I see in the mirror because I stay 100% and say, yeah, I'm okay. And if you do me wrong, you deserve every bit of ire I have. You deserve the cutoff. But if you're that kind of special where I feel like I have to retaliate, I'm going to make it good. And the whole idea that I shouldn't want vengeance if you hurt my child, are you crazy? Are you crazy, sir or ma'am? I've literally threatened the life of a bully's mom because I would never threaten a child. I'm crazy, but ain't that crazy. But I went after his mom, went after an old man who said the N word at him, went after a guy who right in front of me yelled at him. I am not wrapped tight as it is, but if you mess with my child, you might as well just unleash the full psycho. I am not even going to hide that about myself. I have never hid that about myself, and I refuse to let anybody try to gaslight me into believing that I should forgive somebody who would dare cross that boundary and harm my child. It ain't gonna happen. Quick story before I get to the heart of the cat, because I don't think people understand the level of I will destroy the bridge. When I moved to North Carolina, it was not an easy move. I was trying to get from a bad situation, and I went into what I thought was going to be a good situation. Honestly speaking, it still was for Kiddo and I to have stability. But what I didn't realize is I was trading what should have been a decent life for people thinking that they could literally control everything about us because I dared to need help. And these people let me into their home with my child. So I will not act like You know, they did nothing. They helped us. I was able to save. I was able to move out. But it came with the thought of, okay, we helped you. Now you owe us. We're going to have a key to your place. We're going to enter your place. We're going to tell you who you should date. We are going to control every aspect of your life. I was like, okay, you know what? It wasn't as bad as it could have been because I've been with controlling people, but it was pretty annoying. It wasn't until kiddo started having night terror. When I say night terrors, waking up screaming. He was having anxiety, and I didn't know why. Not like some parents, because I understood trauma, I started to realize something's not right. And he finally started to talk about what was happening. And I found out what was happening with him being literally hit for no reason, having stuff taken from him, and pretty much being the whipping boy for somebody who claimed to love and care about us. Now I'm trying to be mindful because I know how these people are, not to put too much of their business out there. But it felt like the ultimate betrayal because when I confronted them about what was going on, when I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what, this can't keep happening, I was asked, who are you going to believe? Not an outright denial of what they were doing to my son, but who was I going to believe? The words of a literal abusive person, because my ex would do the same thing to people, try to turn it around and make it seem like you're crazy for even saying something like that. When I'm accused of something I didn't do, I am vehement with, you will not put that on me. I did not do that. Who are you going to believe? That was the last thing I remember clearly them saying to me before I snapped, let them know, you are not allowed in my life anymore. You are not allowed in my house anymore. Give them my key back. I gave their keys back. I don't want nothing to do. And I haven't talked to them in years now. It makes me sad because I was really close to them. So close that it really felt like I lost my parents. And that's the scorched earth you have to have with toxic people. Because if I didn't, it would be teaching my son that I'm okay letting somebody hurt him. I'm okay because I need to forgive them. No, I've taught him healthy boundaries are important. People need to respect those boundaries. And the moment somebody hurts you, they do not deserve to be able to cross those boundaries. So if you are listening to this cast at this point, you have to understand that it is okay to emotionally distance yourself, to physically distance yourself if you can from people who harm you. It is not on you to forgive somebody who is toxic, who is trying to emotionally or physically, any kind of abuse is not okay. And they will gaslight you. Society loves to gaslight humans into believing it's on you. It's the best thing for you to do. What's being petty gonna do? Being petty is good for your soul. Sometimes being petty is needed so that these people understand that they are not going to use you as a doormat. But another thing is for trauma people, it is very easily for us to be picked upon. For people to think that, oh, okay, I could tread upon you more. You forgave me for the last thing. What's taking more of my stuff? That's why you have to set those boundaries and you have to stop playing those games because your soul will be all right if you didn't do anything wrong. You do not need to forgive somebody to get right with God. There's no deity that I believe in any faith system that tells you you have to keep suffering at the hands of somebody awful in order to be the better person. Y'all got to stop that because it is not okay. It is not all right to gaslight people at this level. And it is not all right for oppressors to continuously act like that is a norm. But this is how our society continues on. And it's a measure of control that I want to see stopped. But I want to get on to the next topic because I can't believe the last few days. I really wanted to be on Friday. I was already upset as it was from some of the stuff I was seeing coming out of the announcement about South Carolina. So many people who will swear up and down that they're my allies with their weigh in about apparently the black voters and how we vote, and conservative black voters, which, as you can see from the title, I know what you mean when you say that, ma'am. But I want to segue for a moment about Justice Alito's little KKK joke, because it's unacceptable. In no way, shape, or form should a sitting Supreme Court justice joke about the KKK, but in the context of what they're talking about, it makes it worse. If you don't know what I'm going on about, a couple of days ago, our SCOTUS had to weigh in on, let me pull up the proper thing for this, because I don't want to be accused of not having my P's and Q's dotted. The case is 303 Creative LLC versus Alenis. It is a marriage equality type ruling, which in itself is already a touchy subject for so many people, because apparently conservative right wingers and Christians alike seem to think that marriage needs to be a traditional thing when most of you are stepping out. I can go on. I'm not going to get into it about marriage because, honestly speaking, it gives me a headache. I think what troubles me about Justice Alito's take is you're equating a black person who has already dealt with a country that dehumanizes and devalues us, taking a picture with a child in a Ku Klux Klan outfit and making a joke that it wouldn't matter what color the child is. I don't see too many black children wearing Klan outfits, sir. But even to get aside from that, you're equating a black person literally dealing with something that has historically murdered us, historically dehumanized us, historically told us our place is less than, with a web designer trying to push this weirdo pseudo faith bullshit about marriage. Is not one and the same. You are allowing one form of bigotry a platform while equating it to another form of violent bigotry, and it's not okay. That web designer needs to shut the fuck up and make the fucking websites. I'm not even going to sugarcoat this, and I'm sorry if I curse, but it makes me upset that we are literally watching SCOTUS try to elevate a form of bigotry, because that's all this is. This so-called Christian web designer can't just put together a wedding site for two happy grown people. Mind your business about who they are. Just design the fucking site and move on, or decline them and risk your business. But if you got to be a bigot, that should be what you pay when you decide that hate is more important to you than the compassion that your faith supposedly pushes. And these people are constantly in people's face about forgiveness, about openness, about being with the Lord. But what kind of Lord would accept you if you closed your heart to two people who found love and want to get married? And the only thing you were supposed to do is design a site to signify that that's happening, and you can't do it. There are a lot of really loud, awful Christians that exactly means they're always preaching of forgiveness and accountability and being with the Holy Spirit, but they are the most violent, vengeful, hateful people. Look at what happened in North Carolina. They just had a drag show announced. They weren't even able to have the drag show because apparently drag performance is a bridge too far. It might make me feel a little bit crazy in my no place. So I had to shoot up the power station and take out power for people during the winter. Now, I know winters in NC aren't as harsh as they are here in Michigan, but we've had troublesome snowstorms down there from time to time. And to not have power because some bigot decided I'm going to be mad at the drag show, the level of acceptable tantrums we allow a certain demographic needs to stop. And having the Supreme Court joke about black kids in KKK robes, to have them make KKK jokes in the first place is not only ridiculous, but signifies the changes we have to make in our society, because there are way too many people in positions of power with acceptable forms of bigotry that get to preside over stuff like this. I don't care where you sit on the marriage thing, because there are way too many people who think, oh, I need to be traditional marriage as they step out. There are way too many people that act like this woman has every right beyond her faith, but would cry if somebody like me decided to open a business and make it pagan only. But the fact of the matter is, some of you okay with this legalized bigotry because you think it makes you feel better than everybody else to be able to shun somebody because, oh, their lifestyle isn't like mine. So I need to say that, it's against my faith to celebrate their love. I won't look at the youth pastor that's literally chasing children. I won't look at my husband, who's probably good 20 years older than me. It was faith that paired us. Y'all are hypocrites. And what makes it worse is that we literally see a SCOTUS who, instead of realizing that bigotry shouldn't be acceptable in this day and age, that we need to emotionally move past all of these weird trappings and stop using faith as an excuse shield for bigotry. No, they make jokes about black kids in KKK outfits, which, y'all, I can't in any way, shape, or form, scenario, understand where that would be acceptable or who would do that until I think about Herschel Walker. Herschel, I walk around in a Cassius Clay shirt Walker. Let me see if I can find that tweet by my friend, because I couldn't believe that nonsense, but I should believe it because Herschel Walker is Herschel Walker. He is literally a bigoted puppet that's just missing his hand up his ass. I don't care if people like the way I phrase that. I wasn't phrasing it to make anybody feel comfortable. I was phrasing it the way I feel. I feel like there are black people out there that know that the only way they're going to stay viable, relevant, and make that money is to do whatever they're told to do by their handler. Now, this fool is out here, and let me transition it over. In the Cassius Clay shirt. Ah, darn it. That's the one thing about this Twitter lineup. I'm not gonna miss it when they finally tank this site either. I'm gonna get back to that dipshit later too, because just reading the stuff that people have said about why they voted for Herschel Walker is infuriating. But this video just, it pisses me and many other black people who are fans of Muhammad Ali off for the longest time, because it's just a constant disrespect. Now, this man, as you can see, I don't want to play a lot of stupid shit that comes out of his mouth, because if you're still listening to this man speak like he's a serious candidate, I can't save you. Anybody who thinks that this man, after listening to his talk, should be a sitting senator, shame on you. But he is legitimately wearing a Cassius Clay shirt. Now, anybody who knows Muhammad Ali, that is a dead name to him. And it's not a dead name in the way transgendered individuals do it, but it was his way of casting off the shackles of having a name that his family wouldn't have picked for him, that he didn't want to pick for himself. It was a way of him saying, this is who I used to be. I am now known as Muhammad Ali. And anybody who respects me, my legacy, and my career will call me by my name, Muhammad Ali. Herschel wearing that shirt should show you every bit of his character, every bit of the disrespect, every bit of, I don't give a fuck about anybody that looks like me. I only give a fuck about Herschel. I only give a fuck about the way I want to feel about the situation. I'm a black man that's got a white man's identity trapped inside of me. And that is what I feel when I see men like Herschel Walker. It is troublesome to me because he is legitimately being voted on by idiots like this one. I'm going to scroll up a bit because I could believe, but I should believe it because this is the kind of games they play. This is the kind of shit they say. Alexander Woodall. And since he put himself out there for the interview, I'm not committing slander. This is his word. Say he voted for Herschel Walker because of his sense of humor. He's a funny guy, with Walter at Taylor Croft. If they aren't going to do anything in Washington, they may as well be entertaining. One of the problems I have, and this is only with my white friends, and I'm sorry, not sorry to a lot of you, because you say the same thing and it infuriates me because y'all call my people low information voters and you run with the same old the government don't do anything bullshit for years now. And especially amongst Gen Xers, that has been a sentiment that I've seen for far too long, and you know it's not true. And you know that if you elect somebody that wants to get the job done, guess what? Legislation happens, financing happens, things happen for your area. But you just want somebody who has a sense of humor, somebody you can have a beer with, somebody who's likable, somebody who's fuckable. You don't want actual competence, yet you complain when shit falls apart. And the problem with 20-year-olds like this is I can't be mad at the fact that he voted. I'm actually happy that somebody his age got out and voted. I'm actually more impressed by the fact that he, as a 20-year-old, decided to exercise his right, because there are way too many people that I'm about to get to in a few minutes who don't follow suit but are very loud and very wrong from the kiddie table of politics. But what troubles me is his attitude and arrogance that, well, nobody's doing anything in Washington anyway, which is a lie, sir, and you know it's a lie. But you like to play these games, and we can't afford to fuck around and find out files because we need that majority. And I'm sorry, but Georgia is already suffering under the incompetence of Kemp. And now you want to ruin things with a incompetent senator potential like Walker. And I'm sorry, as a Walker myself, it is troublesome sharing the last name with somebody who's literally anti-bird, anti-trees, anti-calling Muhammad Ali by his proper name, anti-black, anti-family, but supposedly pro-life. Yo, and then to have clowns like this say he's humorous, sir, or where's the humor? Because you think dehumanizing people is funny, you think abusing women's funny. Where is the humor? I feel like it is troublesome, but not surprising to me that the actual low information voters are saying stuff like this. But what troubles me, especially in the wake of what I was going to talk about on Friday about SC, is the fact that y'all want us to try it out. Save us, black women. We need you, black women. They're gonna take jobs from us, black people. Y'all always call upon us like we're the help. And now the president who realized that if black turnout is for a certain candidate, that should tell people something. So instead of going to fucking Iowa and New Hampshire first, places that I don't even understand how they manipulated themselves to be in the lead of our primaries, we go to South Carolina, where the base and heart of the Democratic Party tend to be. It's a no-brainer. But instead, we got New Hampshire representatives acting the fool. I'm not sure how many Iowa people, because I'm sorry, I don't think about the state of Iowa. I know, 10-year-old, I don't care. I always wondered why the heck we needed the Iowa's opinion and caucus anyway. I know they like, historically speaking, we just want little states to have their say. Why can't they have their say by coming out to vote? Why would they always push to be so important? Then I remember, Tim, you remember that little thing that they did to your people known as the 3/5 rule? You know that thing where they wanted to continue to dehumanize Black Americans without making it seem like they were truly dehumanizing it. They wanted to devalue you yet again, because the fact that they had to legally, after the Emancipation Proclamation, recognize Black Americans as actual citizens chafed a lot of people. And they knew that if we ever understood our voting rights and power, they would be fucked. So, of course, in states like Iowa, where Black populations is not too high. And in places like New Hampshire, yet again, where black populations isn't that great, of course they want them to have first say. It is the Jim Crow of politics. But they think we're too dumb to see that. They call us low information. It's one of the things that the far left and their messiah Bernie tried to push. And I'm excited about it too, Beans. But what troubles me is how many people who swear they're our allies push back. I seen that Jordan guy. I had him blocked. He irked me years ago. Being in political talk and social commentary, you spot phonies left and right constantly. And him using black people in his avatar picture already chafes me. Because he's the kind of person that'll yell BLM until black voices start talking. It's like, no, no, no. I need to talk for you. I've got to be your savior. I'm your ally. He is the entitled white dude that will show up in black spaces and tell us about our experience instead of listening to it. And what infuriates me is about his take. And I saved it. I don't know if I should bring it up, but I should, because it was that infuriating. And in fact, I named the picture because I was so annoyed with it. White man, what? No, seriously, what? Because it was the audacity of it all. Let me see if I can bring this shit up, because I it makes me infuriated, but I shouldn't be surprised. I shouldn't be surprised, because these are the same people that'll yell they're my ally but don't want to hear me speak. They'll yell their slogans and shit at us instead of listening and hearing us out. And then the whole idea of calling black voters, black conservative voters in the South. Sir, ma'am, you don't need to say it. We already know that you view us as the M word. But this was his clapback to somebody who clearly told him that his initial tweet, which he deleted, was out of pocket, because of course him and other white supposed progressives seem to have a problem with black people going first. They don't seem to understand that's that Jim Crow mentality. I have no problem with black people voting. With that said, the states Biden and DNC chose are older population of more conservative black voters. Let me get to the issue with that line in a moment. To act like this doesn't benefit them electorally is disingenuous, which I don't know about you. Maybe I'm new to politics, which I'm not. I'm an old lady. But the whole point is to win. And the whole point is to go where the base is. And if your base is in the South, you go South. But the problem with Jordan and other people is we black voters, especially older pragmatic black voters, we don't fall for the okie doke. You're not going to sway us with just a slogan. That's why we didn't feel the burn. And Jordan and other assholes like him still want to punish us for not falling for Bernie's okie doke, for not going for the malware messiah in the first place. And the call conservative black voters, like being conservative, is in the same ilk as the right wing. It chafes me. These are the same people that still use the term low information for voting for black people when you know that we're voting literally for our lives. Like, who represents us reflects so much. And we have already seen that conservatives will let us have dirty water. They will let our neighborhoods crumble. They will let us fall into fucking decay if we allow them. So, yes, we vote for the party that wants to talk to us, that politicians come out and view us as human beings. I'm sorry, but we're not catered to like you are. So we have to bone up on who's represented us and the person who will do the least harm to us, because we also have the caveat of, will white people vote for them too? And it is infuriating to me how many supposed allies will look us in the face and say, I want black people to vote. I want you to feel your power, but you just got to do it my way. That whole slave master mentality has got to go. You cannot tell black voters that you appreciate us, that you want us to turn out in masses, but just do it our way. You are no better than Herschel Walker's handlers at that point if that's your attitude with the South Carolina announcement. Most of us were okay with this. I don't even live in the South anymore, and I was okay with it because, strategically speaking, where South Carolina has gone, the primaries has gone. Everybody that turned out in South Carolina en masse went on to win the DNC because black people know who will motivate more of us to turn out. And the elder we are, the more we've survived. So it infuriates me that a young asshole like Jordan wants to, conservative black voters. They always vote against what's best for them. I mean, sir, ma'am, when you go what's best for us, I need you to understand that the lies and the so-called promises that the malware messiah, because that's what I'm gonna call him from now on, he doesn't deserve for me to address him by his actual name anymore because too many people want to ignore his fucking grift. He promised you free healthcare for all, but didn't tell you that there was no feasible way he would have been able to enact it. He wanted Jews to believe that your displacement at not being billionaires was more important than our black lives actually mattering. He gave you slogans over actual solutions, and you ran with it because populism always goes to entitled people. Y'all love thinking that you could just yell for stuff and get your way because life has always been fair for you. But to those of us who have had to struggle and survive, we understood the assignment in protecting our democracy from people like you, the entitled, who always seem to find something wrong with actual competence, always seem to find something wrong with somebody who wants to give it themselves and do the right things by all of us. Because in your world, it's only fair if some people suffer and you feel better than somebody else. Y'all have such a messed up mentality, and you want to put your deflection onto black voters. And what troubles me is how many people with actual platforms fix their mouth in a journalistic intent to say they don't agree with it. I've seen that Chris Hayes bullshit. I've never liked Chris Hayes. I've made it clear that I think that some people get into positions of power that they do not deserve. But even worse is some people are in charge of information and the flow of it that only want to craft a narrative that harms those of us who can't afford their rhetoric. And what troubles me about Chris Hayes is not just his misogyny, the bigotry, the fact that somebody aptly pointed out that he couldn't even address former President Obama by his full name, calling him B.O., like they're on that kind of level. It's the fact that he literally couldn't wait, like so many others, to take to how this isn't fair. It's not fair to let the black people go first. Of course, I know black people turn out and they vote for Democrats in a high number. I know that it really didn't make sense for us to be in Iowa, especially after my favorite guy lost there. I complained high and wide about how the super delicate things were not good for our thing, but are we sure we should let the black people go first? That is how assholes like Chris Hayes, assholes like Jordan, Eric, and all the rest of these fuckers sound going against this primary being set in South Carolina. It's very clear that you only want black votes to be the help. It's very clear that you don't want us to recognize our own power, agency, and ability to influence elections. But what you don't understand is that black women like me are raising black voters. Black women like so many others that I know. And even though people have been trying to fracture our community with the bullshit I seen on Friday, and I was going to go all the way off on that young lady who decided to say that biracial black people aren't black because that is how they've been trying to divide our community for a while now. It is how they're trying to attack VP Harris. And don't act like we can't see that. You aren't even being slick with your dumb level of fucking bigotry. And I know you can pay a few dusty hotels. And I know sometimes you don't even have to pay them because ignorance is free and it's in abundance. But when you try to tell somebody who is literally as a biological black parent that they can't claim that blackness, you're an idiot. And not just because of the one drop rule, which I've always hated anyway, because society continues to dehumanize my people enough as it is. But even if it wasn't a way to tell somebody that you're too black to be in our society, the fact of the matter is, I don't want biracial black people denying their blackness. I seen that young man, that coach in the NFL. It broke my heart as a mom watching him speak about how he never had to embrace that side, so he really didn't know how. And I'm not saying that all white parents of biracial black kids do this, because I've seen plenty. My best friend is raising a biracial child, and she is always raised her to embrace both sides of her heritage. I am raising kiddo as a black child. I've never had any issue with doing that. I'm his only parent, technically, though my partner is now helping and has been in and out of our lives since I've had him. And we have had serious conversation because we wanted to try for a child. And I made him realize that any child we had would be raised the same way I was raised, the same traditions I was raised under, because I am a black woman and I don't know how to behave any other way. So for supposedly full black people to try to deny my child his blackness because, oh, his shade is a little bit lighter, no, his heart is black. His biological makeup is black and his mama's black. And I refuse to let your bigotry take his right away. And I know the games you're fucking playing because a certain VP has inspired so many of us. Seeing her guide and lead has opened up so much hope in my heart. And she means what she does. She's not just leading for herself, she is leading for everybody. She talks to everybody equally because she wants a better America for all of us. And for people to attack her heritage and her ethnicity and try to deny her blackness is troublesome. But the attack on HBCUs now, you got Shannon Sharp saying, I regret going to one if I had been able to get into a regular school. And it's like, for what? For white acceptance? That's a problem with the struggle with black identity that I need to be 100% about. Because I don't think a lot of people want to talk about it because it's painful. So many of us that came from a little bit of means, whether your family had money, whether you had a little bit more than what people considered natural, there was a pressure there for acceptance. To be considered acceptable by white people seemed to be something that too many families push for. At the risk of our identities not only eroding, but our self worth, being able to be our authentic self was harder for black kids. And then having colleges that were geared to not only understand our identities, but to teach us like we're human beings, be shit on by black elders like Shannon Sharp. It hurts because I know that it is a conflict of his own self. He knows that HBCUs are good schools. He knows that black children deserve higher education that views us as humans. But he also knows that social acceptance is still a highly valued currency in our society, and that it would have been better for him career-wise to have been accepted in a white school. And it makes me sick to my stomach because we still allow this narrative to be acceptable in our community. We still seek that acceptance as if we're still mentally shackled by these people. And it hurts me on a deep level because we don't have to be. Our excellence is there, our blackness is there. And it shouldn't scare them because our humanity should also be there, recognized and respected. And it troubles me that we continuously allow that to be debatable. That we continuously allow people in power to see us as, they're there. I don't want to have to appeal to them unless I have to. And you see that so clearly in politics where people will say, I'm down with you. I care about your cause. I care about you until you speak, until I have to realize that you're really here. If you can't be a silent prop for me and stand in the background, we're going to have issues. And those are the people that trouble me. Somebody like Michael Avenatti. I think people forget, but I'm never going to let you forget because some of you cursed me out. Some of you supposed allies with BLM in your bios and blue wave emojis treated me like dirt because I had his number early on. And the funny thing was, I didn't even go hard on him back then. I just wanted to know because he was going on about how we needed a fighter against Trump. What are you going to say to the base of the voters? I remember the tweet he blocked me on because I wanted to be clear with him. What are you going to say to the base of the Democratic voters, the black voters who aren't down with your message? Who don't need a fighter, who want actual work done after 4 years of incompetence? And he blocked me. He couldn't even respond to the question. I don't think I asked him anything hard. I definitely didn't stutter. I didn't personally attack him either. I asked him something that any journalist with integrity would have asked a politician who's going on about needing a fighter and strength and all that bullshit, toxic bullshit against Trump. What will you do to appeal to a voter like me who isn't looking for a fighter, who's looking for competence? And I got blocked and I went off after that. White women went crazy at me. Very few use apologize too, and you know what? I don't need it. You keep that to yourself. Y'all thought he was sexy. Y'all thought he was tough. Y'all gave me all kinds of disgusting excuses to why that now convicted criminal, because he's going to jail for 14 years, probably do less. Let's be honest. People like him never pay their full price for their crimes. For fraud and other abuses of his lawyer privileges. When I tell you my vibes don't lie about somebody, I was anti-Avenatti from the get-go, and I took all the abuse on Twitter from people who are, oh yeah, you don't understand where he's coming from. We need somebody tough against Trump. And it was like, we need somebody who can actually do the job of a president. I don't know if you've been here the last 4 years, but we kind of had nobody at the wheel in our country being flown into the shitter. But I guess in your world, somebody who talks really good but can't really do anything is good enough. And this is why some of y'all are at the kiddie table permanently. I think what troubles me about the Avenatti thing the most is how obvious some people treat politics like a grift and how we as a party need to get it together. Because the open bigotry, while it doesn't shock me, pisses me off in this day and age. How you can yell things like defund the police and then get mad at black people who are often the victims of crime. But we just don't want to be accused of being criminals when we need to call the police for help. When we need actual social workers in the case of mental health issues over somebody with a gun. And yes, I saw that video earlier, those 12-year-olds having the gun pulled on them by somebody who should be looking to protect and serve them too. Because last I checked, our children are citizens here. I'm tired of seeing black trauma. I'm tired of seeing our pain being normalized. I'm tired of cops viewing us as the enemy automatically. I'm scared for my son who gets taller and stronger looking by the day for me. And while it gives me a sense of pride that my baby is big and strong looking, it scares me as a mom in this country what that means for him. Because while it should be a point of pride, and normally in our culture, having a big, strong son is something that, especially for island culture, I don't speak for all black culture, but for island culture especially, having a child that's strong and tall and broad is normally something you celebrate. But for me, it scares me to let my baby do the normal things in his own country, because people are going to assume, they're not going to know off the bat, because they assume somebody that looks like him is tough. Boy, he asked for plushies. His whole Christmas list is plushies. He's a sweet, gentle soul who I love more than life itself. And it scares me putting him out into a world that not only doesn't understand him, but makes assumptions. It's draining, y'all. And what frustrates me is how many people will call somebody like me who votes to protect him, to protect myself, to give us a fighting chance, who wants cops that don't view us as anything but citizens that they need to protect too, as conservative, as if being protective of ourselves, protective of our neighborhood, protective of our kids, wanting better for everybody is a bad thing. You might as well learn how to say pragmatist like the N word, because that's what I am. I realize that raising me up means Jim Bob Hader is going to get better stuff too. That was one of the points I was going to make about that ridiculous bigoted web designer. You don't realize how many Black people, especially people like me, who have worked several jobs where I've had to deal with the public, had to put up with customers and clients whose ideology definitely didn't gel with mine, especially when I worked in the South. I was getting a paycheck and I was doing my job. That is all you can do when you're supposed to. I don't bring my faith into the equation, because my faith isn't here to shun or make somebody feel less than to make me feel good. And some of you aren't doing your faith right or doing yourself any justice. And it is my hope that your faith is real, so that when you do die and you get up to those pearly gates that you claim to be about, you get turned away and told that you need to do it over, because you didn't learn any of the tenements of compassion, care, and to look beyond yourself. You don't care about love. You don't care that two grown people found each other and just want to unite and make a partnership and have that happiness. You want to talk about traditional marriage, and most of you are miserable, bitter, awful people, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be denying two people in love their chance to be happy. And you want to talk about all of what is, we allow this, we allow that. No, because a lot of yous will quietly allow all kinds of deviance. You blocked the Catholic Church when they were literally harming children. You turned a blind eye to so much fuckery. I'm telling you, some of the nastiest affairs and dirtiest dealings I seen was within the walls of churches. Who's sleeping with who was the fun and game gossip bullshit going around the pews. Y'all know it. Y'all act like we're not supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to keep it on the down low, but that's the problem. Too many of you keep the dirty on the down low when you know it is harmful. So many of you know who your deacon's doing, and it ain't his wife. Sometimes it's not somebody else's wife, or it's not a wife material at all. And covering that mess up isn't okay. And that's the problem I've had, and it sweeps back onto forgiveness, because it's always those people who utilize their ability to supposedly preach the word, supposedly guide you faithfully, that do the most damage. Because people think, oh no, they're a good soul. They preach the word well. I gotta look the other way as they eye that 15-year-old. And the only time they don't look the other way is when they have same-sex issues. These same people will preach, oh, it's against my faith to believe in LGBT stuff. Ignore the fact that I am literally LGBTQ. I can't make that make sense. Why would you want to be in a faith that denies you the ability to be your authentic self? That it just doesn't math for me. And what troubles me is how many people push this. And I put this forward to so many of my friends, because I have friends who are Christian. I don't think you should shun your friends based on faith. They've never shunned me based on my pagan faith. But I asked them, what does it harm you when two grown people or even two teenagers who understand who they are start dating. And when they are 18 and older, decide to enter into a union, how does that take from you? You can still marry whoever you want if you're straight. The world recognizes your marriage as supposedly legitimate. You have never had the trauma of the world telling you that your whole existence is wrong. Yet you want to continuously do that to another human being. And I don't understand what reason. And it can only analytically say that it's because these people in the so-called traditional marriages aren't happy. A lot of them are groomed into believing that this is their place. Like I said, that young weirdo lady in TikTok talking about how masturbation's witchcraft. It's like, bitch, I'm a witch. I even without doing that, I practice that stuff. You don't know what you're speaking about. But the whole idea of controlling people via sex, instead of teaching people how to healthily identify not only the things you're attracted to, but how to have healthy, stable relationships, is why our species is going to fail if we don't get our shit together. I think it is insane to me how many humans still don't understand emotional maturity with sex, understand that who you're attracted to is okay because it is a natural reaction your brain and body have. And that sexual stimulation needs to be healthy. It needs to be with consenting adults. And it needs to be taught well enough to where our youth, I'm not going to act like they're not going to engage in it. Wildest 10 was during my teen years. I was a bookworm, but I made out a lot. I did a lot of things after I was assaulted that I probably shouldn't have, but I just didn't know. I didn't know how to have healthy sexual relationships because of what happened to me as a kid. And I think it is because of that I realized early on that we have to have not only open dialogue with our kids, but teaching them boundaries, teaching them that it is okay to like certain things, but that if it crosses a certain line, that's not okay. When you have these open conversations, it is you're able to have a healthy relationship, both sexually and emotionally. And too many people aren't getting that lesson. Too many people have, oh no, faith says no. You can't have pleasure. You're only supposed to carry a baby in you. Who cares if you have pleasure? You're a brood mare. That is what they're trying to sell women. And I don't think they realize that a lot of us don't ascribe to that, man. Good luck to you. I don't think people are getting it, but hopefully they will soon understand that the world is changing. Too many of us have survived your dehumanization. And we realize we're going to go on without you. Some of you are legitimately still trying to push the normal and fall into that illness that shall not be named. We are going to keep on keeping on because that's all we can do. We are legitimately the survivor descendants of those who have survived some of the harshest things in our country. But what troubles me is this really weird rise in sexual control that the so-called crystal fascists want to do because it only backfires. You're only raising very confused young adults who are easy picking for predators at this point. Because for some reason to you, you still think it's your moral obligation to dictate how, why, and who has sex. And that's just not how this world works. So if that is how you get off in this day and age, you're going to be salty because the world is changing. We're going to see more entertainment and literature that openly expresses the vast relationships out there, healthy relationships out there, and sometimes not so healthy because toxicity happens within the LGBTQ community that needs to be called out. There have been people who've taken advantage of that status to be abusive, and I want my friends who have gone through that to be able to speak up because toxic relationships happen. That's how I know their relationships are normal. It happens, and it's not your fault. And getting out is hard, but it is not impossible. And you will find the love of your life that you deserve. And they will be the person you're attracted to. You shouldn't take an abusive situation and say, "Oh, I can't be gay. It's a bad situation." I don't think that is fair at all. If that was the case, most of the people who have done me dirty have been dudes. I still don't even see why we deal with them half the time, but the love of my life is a guy. I think honestly, we know who we are attracted to, who we can emotionally connect to, who we not only sexually but spiritually feel close to. And that's why I've never been anti LGBTQ plus, because I feel like being your authentic self is the only way to live in this world. Is the only way to exist in this world. And it troubles me that there are so many people that are against it being loud, being wrong, and apparently, with our SCOTUS's help, being able to scoff and liken it to something like the KKK. I'm not okay with that. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. Greg and I have to order a new fridge. Our fridge is on the fritz. It has just been a rough few days, but not impossible. I just want to thank you all for constantly having my back. Beans, thank you so much for sitting in there. And exactly, the Catholic Church in itself, and I have Catholic family, so I try to be mindful of it because I don't want them calling me getting upset. But the amount of stuff that they covered up, the amount of stuff that still goes on under the guise of holy, makes me side eye. And I know that faith offers comfort to people. I am not knocking spirituality. I am knocking the people that use and abuse spirituality to hide their dark side and are given a place where they can just do this with impunity. It is beyond time that we stop allowing that to be the narrative. And it's on us. Too many times we've had people who, I want to say, maybe went in with intentions of goodness towards faith, but seen a child and thought, I'm attracted to them. I have the ability to cover this up. I'm just going to do what I want to do. They don't care about the mental scarring and the damage they've done to that child. It is all about their sexual gratification while they pretend like they're chaste, while they pretend like they don't harbor those thoughts, because they were taught that sex is dirty instead of being taught the emotional connection that you should have when you're having relations like that. And it's because our society continues to condone this toxic cycle and the control that religion wants to have over our society and minds that it's going to stay messy until we pull it together as a society. There is always going to be a way for us to have both faith and freedom, but it comes with the church letting go of that grip. And I don't see them doing it without a fight, sadly. But I will talk more on these topics on Friday. Like I said, we've got to go order a fridge. I got to get some dinner made. Beans, thank you so much. And exactly, that I'm telling you that I can go over a whole history of just abusive supposed leaders in several societies. It is tragic when you know actual history. The amount of abusive leaders who took advantage of youth. And it's just tiring that people want to give it fancy terms, but it's abuse. There's no need to give it a fancier term than that. If you pick on somebody who is not old enough to consent, who legally cannot, you are an abusive piece of crap. That is just the way it is. And way too many of us have scars and stories of surviving the trauma of that. And it's not okay. And I want to see less adults with these kind of wounds. The world needs to get it together. As I write the next story, it troubles me how much of it parallels just the acceptable forms of bigotry, the acceptable forms of dehumanization. I am going to really touch upon those things, because I don't think people understand what it feels like to have somebody look at you as less than human unless you've lived that. And too many of us know that pain. And I want to vocalize what that feels like and how we as a society can stop that. But I'm going to get ready to wrap it up. I will definitely be back on Friday. Hopefully, y'all, I apologize for last Friday, though, for real. I just really, between not feeling good, having a really bad mental health break, I just needed time to rest. And I'm just grateful to all of you who understood that and understood it was nothing personal. I just really needed time to recuperate. But I will definitely be back on Friday because there's always a lot to talk about. There's always so much to go on, but I definitely wanted to talk about SC. I definitely wanted to talk about that SCOTUS and about the push for forgiveness, all of that nonsense. Thank you so much, Beans, for sitting in, and I will definitely be back on Friday. And I'm sorry about the gym. We'll probably bring that back on Friday too. I just know that right now Axion's on the phone with his parents. We're just trying to get stuff done for the house. So we will be back on Friday, hopefully with some 80s music too.